On this fundamental issue, I will not yield, and Planned Parenthood will not yield.
All the odds against us. Faithfulness is the word.
My religion compels me, and I love it for it, to be against discrimination of any kind in our country.
Our rights come from nature and God, not from government.
All God asks of you is faithfulness, faithfulness, faithfulness.
Fighting for the family, standing for the church, laboring to return to a moral and biblically based culture.
This is the American Family Association at AFA Today.
So glad you're with us live from New York in the shadow of the Freedom Tower, just across the street from the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, and right next to the historic Trinity Church Cemetery, where 8 signers of our Declaration of Independence are buried, and our very first Treasury Secretary. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the AFA Today broadcast, AFR Talk. Kevin McCullough is my name. 888-589-8840 is my phone number. 888-589-8840. I have much to get to and much that I want to discuss with you, not the least of which is this big Tea Party win by common sense conservatives in the Richmond, Virginia district last night, the 7th district of the Commonwealth, and very, pleased. I mean, let me be really clear here up front. Eric Cantor wasn't the worst enemy that pro-family conservatives had. In fact, I don't know of a specific conservative event that he hasn't been willing to come, talk, network with, discuss things with, et cetera, et cetera. But there was a feeling amongst the Tea Party faithful, the grassroots faithful, true conservatives in this country, that this was a man who was increasingly less committed to those people that helped get him to where he was and much more focused on things like maybe replacing Speaker of the House John Boehner. So whatever the nation may have felt about him, in his own district last night, a man that had a budget of only $122,000 took down a candidacy that sponsored $5 million worth of campaign support for the two candidates. So it is very telling that Mr. Bratt is now competing for the chance. Well, he's won the chance to go to the final. Now he's going to be competing in the general election against the Democrats. And I've heard mixed messages about this. I've seen some hand-wringing on social media today. Oh, my goodness, the Republicans are going to lose the seat now. And others like Jedediah Bila on Fox News saying that the district is strongly conservative, strongly Republican. They're going to carry this in November as well. We will wait and see. But thank you for being here. The other huge story today is that Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel went to Capitol Hill this morning and seemed a little bit, testy about why he had to be there. His opening statement was very firm. He justified reasons for why 5 terrorists needed to be released into the public so that we could bring a deserter home, although he called them things like soldier and prisoner of war, and he said something about when he went missing, and I kept saying in my head, watching the television screen, key words being there, he went. But he did at least acknowledge something, and I'm not a fan of Chuck Hagel at all. In fact, I think he's probably one of the most useless senators we ever had, and maybe an even more feckless Secretary of Defense. And I know that's strong language, but that's my opinion, and I'm allowed to give my opinion, just like I ask you for your opinion at 888-589-8840. But he did say, look, I know that there's been some broken trust in this whole thing. Take a listen.
As all of you know, I value the Defense Department's partnership with this Congress and the trust we've developed over the years. I know that trust has been broken. I know you have questions about that. But I'll tell you something else. I have always been straightforward, completely transparent with this committee since I've been Secretary of Defense. I will continue. I will do that always with all my relationships and associations and responsibilities to the Congress. That's what I always demanded, Mr. Chairman, of any administration when I was a member of the United States Senate. I've been on your side. of this equation. I understand it. That's what I've done this morning with the statement I've made, and I made the decision I did. And I've explained that in general terms.
All right, that whole last paragraph, I have no idea what he meant by any of it. But let me just quickly say, he understands that trust was broken. How was trust broken? Congressman Buck McKeon, the chairperson of this particular committee, the Select Committee on Defense in the House, he spoke very blatantly, very candidly. He said, Secretary Hagel, you made some points. You came out, you defended your position with passion, et cetera, et cetera. I don't see anything wrong with, why you perhaps thought that this was a good idea or thought that you could perhaps move forward. He said, but there was one big mistake. There was one big, huge mistake. And that was that you started working on the negotiations for the release of Bo Bergdahl in January of 2014 for the second time. They had worked on them before. This was a return to the negotiations. And I was puzzled by this. Secretary Hagel said in a couple of spots, well, we had dropped the ball and kind of anticipated that everything was going to just come to an end, come to its cessation, and then we would get word through Qatar from the Haqqani network that the Taliban were interested in talking again, and so then we would push more aggressively at that time. What is he saying? Basically, the way I understood him to be saying it today is that the Taliban would make a move and then we would respond. And if the Taliban went quiet, we would go quiet. And if they made a move towards reconciliation or trading the prisoners, then we would respond to that. The one thing I didn't hear in his lengthy, audible, passionate, angering defense that he felt, why should I have to defend our position? We're the administration. But the one thing I found missing in all of that was that there was no clear picture of what we were doing to take leadership in the situation. It seems as though we were reacting to everything our enemies did. And so we would negotiate when they would reinitiate negotiations. He got the angriest this morning when he was continually kind of, put under the thumb, at least of the sections that I saw. He was continually kind of put under the thumb of trying to defend Bo Bergdahl's not in good health status, because that was the big excuse. We had to go get him now because we didn't know what might happen to him. And he finally thinks he's solved the whole matter by just saying, look, when the medical professionals say he can come, he'll come home. 888-589-8840. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. Not sure if you did or didn't. If you want to comment on it, you're more than welcome to. But let me just quickly add, there was someone else that weighed in on the whole Taliban 5 trade deal, and she commented on this in an interview done yesterday, but they played it this morning on the Today Show on NBC, and that was former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who's on a book tour trying to launch her presidential campaign, and she was asked about these 5 terrorists that they let go.
These 5 guys are not a threat to the United States. They are a threat to the safety and security of Afghanistan. It's up to those 2 countries to make the decision once and for all that these are threats to them. So
wow. These guys are not a threat to the United States, though they helped plan the planes that flew into our buildings and killed our people. She says these guys are threats to the welfare and the stability of Pakistan and Afghanistan. I'm curious just how you receive what Hillary Clinton wants you to believe, and that is that these guys that we let loose, they really don't pose any threat to the American people whatsoever. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. But I find it genuinely astounding that this is the position that she ends up taking on this. So let me hear that again.
These 5 guys are not a threat to the United States. They are a threat to the safety and security of Afghanistan. Pakistan.
That's what I thought she said. Do you agree with her? When we released 5 terrorists, the Taliban's worst that they have, the ones that we took off the field because they were shooting at us, that they genuinely pose no threat to the United States. Is this the line that we're going to get from the administration and for those that would want to have the next administration? Is this what we're going to be asked to believe, that letting go the 5 worst Taliban terrorists in the world runs no risk to America whatsoever? Because I'll tell you some people that if they don't believe it, they sure act like they believe that, and that is people like Chuck Hagel and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Those people seem to believe that they didn't do anything wrong here. And I want to know another thing. Yesterday, one of the big headlines was this. Secretary of Defense Hagel testify before Congress tomorrow. It's likely that it was all his fault. Wait a second. Why does the Secretary of Defense now have to take the blame when, and I told you guys this last week, when it was so unartfully rolled out that the president was responding to kind of the piecemeal media criticism he was getting, but he was overseas, he was in France, he wasn't really on the ground here to hear what the media in America was saying. So he kept saying things like, I did it, I'm confident I did the right thing, and I'd do it again if necessary, and I will do it again if necessary. And all of a sudden, the administration wants to push it onto the Secretary of Defense? Help me understand how that works. Because here's what I think is pretty common sense, and I could be wrong on this, but this is where I really think I begin to differ with the smart people that are in charge. I don't need a degree in counterterrorism from one of the military academies to understand that when we take terrorists off the field who were trying to kill us the first time and flew planes into our buildings and helped drop the plans for that, and then we're happy when that was successful and the buildings fell down. The buildings that, by the way, are just across the street from where this building sits that I'm coming to you from. The Memorial Museum is in the underground footprint of where World Trade One was. We come to you from the shadow of the new Freedom Tower that was built in the place of the old towers. But when those 5 people helped draw up plans that flew planes into those buildings and killed people that live and walk around these very streets that I'm coming to you from, I don't know. There's something about me that says probably not a good idea to turn them loose again. That probably if there was an ability for them to hurt us the first time, perhaps there's an ability for them to reconfigure and hurt us again. Oh, and by the way, one last little news bit for that along those lines. This morning it was pronounced in the Wall Street Journal that U.S. intelligence officials had predicted that 2 of the detainees from Gitmo in that exchange absolutely would return to Taliban fighting status, according to a published report. The Wall Street Journal reported that the analysis was contained in a classified assessment that was prepared by the spy agencies during the deliberations about the prisoner exchange. So when the spy agencies were doing their research to try to help the administration formulate a case for what would likely happen in the outcome of certain actions being taken, i.e. letting the prisoners go, the classified assessment of the 5 Taliban said at least 2 of them will return to aggressive fighting postures with the enemy in the field of battle. Oh, and 2 more said that they were likely to assume active roles within the Taliban as well. So at least 4 of the 5, according to the intelligence agencies that are currently working in Washington, D.C. right this very minute to try to keep their heads above water to see where the threats to our freedom is coming from, they all told Defense Secretary Hagel, President Obama, Secretary of State Clinton, whoever else, look, it's likely that 4 of these 5 will return to the Taliban and try to fight us again. But we're supposed to think that this was just the greatest thing that just really ever happened. We got our POW back. He was called a POW consistently today. A prisoner of war. Kevin McCullough, so glad you're with us. It's AFA Today on AFR Talk. Stay with us.